So what is the greatest common factor of 5 and 35? So 25, I'm sorry, 25 and 35. 25 would be 5 times 5. 35 would be 5 times 7. You can't break these down anymore. What do they both have in common? The most they have in common is 5. Separate into perfect squares and perfect cubes. Squares is when it's just two numbers, like 3 times 3 is 9. But 3 times 3 times 3 is 27, so 3 cubed is 27. 125 would be 5, 5, and 5. That's 3 of them. 16 would just be 4 and 4, which is 2 numbers. X to the, does that say x to the y power? That should be like x to the 4th or something. That was messed up. 4 is a square because it's 2 times 2. 25 is a square because it's 5 times 5. X to the 4th is a square because it's an even number. It would be x squared and x squared. Not necessarily always even numbers, but even exponents are always squares. 8 is not a square. It's a cube. It's 2, 2, and 2. And again, I apologize for whatever's up with this 4th power. I might have been wanting to do 3 or 6. I have no idea why that is different. Choose the option that could be a difference of perfect squares. So what does difference mean? It means subtract. So it's got to be the red one or the blue one. But the red one, 10 is not a perfect square, so it's not the red one. Neither was the cube, the x cubed. GCF, this was the most missed question in first period. The most they have in common. Well, x to the 5th would be x, 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 and x. That's 5 x's. X to the 7th would be 7 of them. What's the most they have in common? They have 5 in common. So x to the 5th is the greatest common factor. This is a 3-part trinomial right here. Quadratic means it's x squared. This is also a quadratic, but they are both squares, perfect squares, and it's a difference. And then finally, this last one would be GCF. A big part of being good at factoring is knowing what type of factoring you are dealing with. And that's why we're breaking our little sheet down into three sections today. Choose the numbers that multiply to make 12 and add to make 8. So I got to multiply and make 12. That could be 6 times 2. And 6 and 2 do make 8 when you add them. If you chose 4 and 3, that would add up to make 7. Very important skill with quadratic trinomial factoring. Similar question, this time we got to make 24 and they got to add up to make 11. 6 and 4 would make 24, but they don't add up to 11. It's 8 and 3. Match these up. Trinomial means 3 parts, right? Like this one. Binomial is just 2 parts. Monomial is just 1 part. And polynomial is, by definition, many or 3 or more. What's the GCF of these two? Just added this question. 15 and 20. 15 would be 3 times 5, and the x squared would be x and x. 20 would be 4 times 5, but wait, 4 is 2 times 2, by the way. And 3 x's. What's the most they have in common? They both got a 5, and they both got 2 x's. 5x squared. 2x is x squared. Match the sets with their GCF. 12 and 18 are both divisible by 6. That's their greatest common factor. 12 and 24 are both divisible by 12. 6 and 9 are both divisible by 3. 35 and 28 are both divisible by 7. Oops, that's 35 and 49. Still both divisible by 7. And 5x and 7x are both divisible by x. That's what they have in common, x.